There's also a national SNAP hotline that can provide information and help you find local resources. The USDA Food and Nutrition Service, which oversees SNAP at the federal level, has a website with a lot of useful information as well. And honestly, if you're watching this video, you're clearly comfortable using YouTube and the internet, so don't underestimate the value of doing your own research too. Look up your state's SNAP website, read through the information there, and see what resources they provide. The bottom line here is this: losing your SNAP benefits because you didn't recertify on time would be an absolute tragedy, especially when the process, while admittedly bureaucratic and time-consuming, is totally doable if you just take it step by step and give yourself enough time. These benefits exist to help families afford nutritious food, and if you qualify for them, you deserve to receive them. Don't let confusion or procrastination or fear of the system cost you this vital assistance. So here's what I want you to do right now, today, before you even finish watching this video. If you haven't already, check to see if you have any mail from your state's social services agency. Look for anything that says recertification, renewal, or redetermination. If you find something, read it carefully and note your deadline. If you're not sure whether you need to recertify, call your local SNAP office tomorrow morning and ask. And if you know you need to recertify, start gathering your documents today. Don't wait until the last minute. Give yourself plenty of time to deal with any complications that come up. Because trust me, complications always come up when you're dealing with government bureaucracy. This is your food security we're talking about. This is your ability to put meals on the table for yourself and your family. It's worth taking seriously, and it's worth putting in the time and effort to get it done right. You've got this, and I'm here to help guide you through it. Attention. If you're receiving SNAP benefits, you need to listen to this right now because what I'm about to tell you could mean the difference between keeping your food assistance or losing it completely. Millions of Americans are about to face a critical deadline that could cut off their benefits without warning. State agencies across the country are requiring SNAP recipients to reapply for their benefits, and if you miss this window, you could be left without grocery assistance when you need it most. Here's the scary part. Many people don't even know they need to reapply. You might think you're all set, that your benefits will just continue automatically, but that's not how it works. Right now, as pandemic-era policies have ended, states are returning to regular recertification schedules, and if you don't take action, your EBT card could stop working overnight. So who's affected? If you've been receiving SNAP for several months, or if you received a notice in the mail, even one you might have accidentally thrown away, you could be at risk. Some states are requiring recertification for recipients who haven't reapplied since before the pandemic, which means potentially millions of households are in the danger zone. But don't panic, I've got you covered. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to do, step by step. I'll show you how to check if you need to reapply, what documents you'll need to gather, how to submit your application online or in person, and the critical deadlines you absolutely cannot miss. I'll also share insider tips on how to speed up the process and avoid common mistakes that get applications denied. This isn't something you can put off until tomorrow. Your family's food security depends on getting this right, and I'm here to make sure you don't lose your benefits. So if this information is helping you, smash that like button right now, and let's make sure you keep the benefits you depend on. All right. Let's dive right into this because time is absolutely critical here, and I want to make sure you understand exactly what's happening with SNAP benefits across the country right now. And the situation is serious, but if you stay with me through this entire video, you're going to walk away knowing exactly what to do to protect your benefits. So let's get started. First things first, I need you to understand why this is happening right now. During the pandemic, the federal government made some major changes to how SNAP benefits worked. They increased the amount of money people received, they relaxed some of the rules, and most importantly for what we're talking about today, they temporarily suspended the requirement for people to regularly recertify their eligibility. That meant if you were getting SNAP benefits, you could keep getting them without having to reapply every 6 months or every year like you normally would. It was a lifeline for millions of families during an incredibly difficult time, and it helped keep food on the table when so many people were losing jobs and struggling to make ends meet. But here's what's changed. Those emergency provisions have ended. They started phasing out in different states at different times throughout the past year, and now we're in a situation where states are requiring everyone to go back to the normal recertification process. What that means in plain English is that if you've been receiving SNAP benefits, you now need to prove that you still qualify for them. And I cannot stress this enough. If you don't complete this recertification process, your benefits will be cut off. Not reduced, not put on hold, but completely terminated. And once they're cut off, getting them back can take weeks or even months. Now you might be thinking, well, I've been getting my benefits every month without any problems, so surely the state knows I still qualify, right? Unfortunately, that's not how the system works. The government doesn't just assume you still meet the eligibility requirements. They need you to actively prove it by submitting a new application with current information about your income, your household size, your expenses, and everything else that determines whether you qualify and how much you should receive. This isn't optional, and there's no automatic extension. If you miss the deadline, you're done until you reapply, and that process can take 30 days or more in some states. Done until you reapply, and that process can take 30 days or more in some states. So let's talk about who needs to reapply. This is where things get a little complicated because every state runs its SNAP program slightly differently, and the timelines vary depending on when your state ended the emergency provisions. Generally speaking, if you haven't had to recertify your SNAP benefits since before the pandemic started, you're almost certainly due for recertification now. Some states are sending out notices in waves, so even if your friend or family member already had to recertify, your turn might be coming up soon. The key thing to look for is any mail from your state's Department of Social Services, Department of Human Services, or whatever agency handles SNAP in your state. These notices are usually pretty clear about what you need to do and when you need to do it by. But here's the problem. A lot of people either don't receive these notices because their address on file is outdated, or they receive them but don't realize how urgent they are. I've heard so many stories from people who thought they had more time, or who put the notice aside planning to deal with it later, and then suddenly their benefits were gone. One woman I spoke with told me she had received a notice, but thought it was just routine paperwork that could wait until after the holidays. When January rolled around and her EBT card was declined at the grocery store with her kids standing right there, she was devastated. She had to scramble to get a food bank appointment and borrow money from family while she rushed through the recertification process. That's exactly the kind of situation I want to help you avoid. Let me walk you through what the recertification process actually looks like, step by step, in a way that makes sense. The first thing you need to do is confirm whether you actually need to recertify and when your deadline is. If you received a notice in the mail, that notice should tell you your specific deadline. If you're not sure whether you need to recertify or if you think you might have missed a notice, don't just sit there wondering. Call your local SNAP office directly. I know. Calling government offices can be frustrating. You might be on hold for a long time, and the hours might be inconvenient, but this is too important to skip. When you call, have your case number ready if you have it, and ask them directly whether you need to recertify and what your deadline is. Write down the name of the person you speak with and the date and time of the call. Keep detailed records of everything related to your SNAP case from this point forward. Now, once you know you need to recertify, the next step is gathering your documentation. This is where a lot of people run into trouble because they don't have everything they need readily available. You're going to need proof of identity for everyone in your household, so think driver's licenses, state IDs, birth certificates, or social security cards. You'll need proof of where you live, which usually means a utility bill, a lease agreement, or a mortgage statement with your current address on it. You'll need detailed information about all the income coming into your household, and this is really important. When I say all income, I mean everything. Your wages from work, of course, but also unemployment benefits if you're receiving them, social security benefits, disability payments, child support, alimony, any money from gig work or side hustles. Basically, any money that comes into your household needs to be documented. For wages, you'll typically need your most recent pay stubs, usually the last 30 days' worth. If you're self-employed, you might need to provide tax returns or a detailed breakdown of your income and expenses. If you receive any government benefits besides SNAP, you'll need documentation of those as well. You'll also need to provide information about your expenses. This includes things like rent or mortgage payments, utility bills, medical expenses if you have them, and childcare costs if you pay for daycare or babysitting so you can work. Some states also want to know about your resources, meaning things like bank accounts and vehicles, although the rules about what counts and what doesn't vary quite a bit from state to state. I know this sounds like a lot, and honestly, it is a lot. But here's the thing. You don't need to have perfect documentation for everything. If you're missing something, don't let that stop you from submitting your application on time. It's better to submit an incomplete application before your deadline and then provide the missing documents later than to miss your deadline entirely because you were trying to get every single piece of paper in order. Most states will give you 10 days after you submit your application to provide any missing documentation, and they'll let you know specifically what they need. Speaking of submitting your application, let's talk about how you actually do that. Most states now offer online applications, which is honestly the easiest way to go if you have access to a computer or smartphone and feel comfortable using technology. The online systems usually guide you through each section, and you can often upload photos or scans of your documents right there. Some states even have mobile apps specifically for managing SNAP benefits, and these can be incredibly convenient. You can check the status of your application, report changes, and sometimes even message with a caseworker directly through the app. If you're not comfortable with online applications or don't have reliable internet access, you can absolutely still do a paper application. You can usually download and print the forms from your state's website, or you can go to your local SNAP office and pick up a paper application there. Fill it out completely and carefully, making sure you sign and date everywhere that requires a signature. Then you can either mail it in or drop it off in person at your local office. If you're mailing it, I strongly recommend sending it certified mail with return receipt requested so you have proof that it was received and when. If you're dropping it off in person, ask for a stamped receipt showing that you submitted your application on that date. There's also usually a phone option where you can call and complete your application over the phone with a caseworker. This can be helpful if you have questions or need guidance through the process, but be prepared for potentially long wait times and make sure you have all your information and documentation handy before you call. Now, after you submit your recertification application, you'll typically need to complete an interview. Some states are doing these interviews over the phone now, which is much more convenient than having to go into an office. The interview is basically a conversation where a caseworker goes through your application with you, asks clarifying questions, and makes sure everything is accurate and complete. They might ask about changes in your household, your employment situation, or your expenses. Be honest and thorough in your answers. If your situation has changed since you first applied for SNAP, this is when you explain those changes. The interview is also your opportunity to ask questions if there's anything about the process you don't understand. Don't be embarrassed to ask for clarification. These caseworkers talk to people all day long who are navigating this system, and they're used to explaining things. If you miss your scheduled interview, contact your SNAP office immediately to reschedule. Missing your interview can result in your application being denied, which means you'd have to start the whole process over again. After your interview and after you've submitted all required documentation, your state has a certain amount of time to process your recertification and make a determination. This is usually 30 days from the date you submitted your application, although it can be faster in some cases. During this time, a caseworker is reviewing everything you submitted, verifying your information, and calculating what benefit amount you qualify for if you're approved. Here's something really important that a lot of people don't know. If you submit your recertification application before your current certification period ends, your benefits should continue without interruption while your recertification is being processed. But if you wait until after your benefits have already been cut off to submit your recertification, you'll have a gap in coverage that could last a month or more. That's why acting quickly is so crucial. Let's talk about some common mistakes that can get your recertification denied or delayed, because I want you to avoid these pitfalls. The biggest mistake is simply missing the deadline. Mark your deadline on every calendar you have, set reminders on your phone, do whatever you need to do to make sure you don't forget. The second most common mistake is providing incomplete or inaccurate information. If something on your application isn't clear or doesn't match your documentation, that's going to slow down the process while they ask for clarification. Take your time filling out the application, double-check everything, and be as detailed and accurate as possible. Another mistake is not reporting changes in your household or income. If you got a new job, if someone moved in or out of your household, if your rent changed, if you had a baby, all of these things can affect your eligibility and benefit amount. You need to report these changes, and the recertification process is the perfect time to make sure your case file reflects your current situation. Some people also make the mistake of not keeping copies of everything they submit. I cannot stress enough how important it is to keep copies of your application, all your documentation, any notices you receive, and notes from any phone calls or meetings. If there's ever a dispute or confusion about your case, having your own records can be absolutely invaluable. Now, what happens if your recertification is denied? First, don't panic. You have the right to appeal that decision, and you should absolutely exercise that right if you believe the denial was wrong. When you receive your denial notice, it will include information about how to file an appeal and the deadline for doing so. Usually you have 90 days to file an appeal, but don't wait that long. File as soon as possible. In many states, if you file your appeal within 10 days of receiving the denial notice, your benefits will continue at the same level while your appeal is being processed. The appeal process varies by state, but generally you'll have an opportunity to present your case to an impartial hearing officer. You can bring additional documentation, explain your situation, and challenge the reasons for the denial. You can also bring someone with you to help advocate for you, whether that's a friend, family member, or someone from a legal aid organization. Speaking of legal aid, if you're having serious problems with your SNAP case, there are often free legal services available specifically to help people with public benefits issues. Don't hesitate to reach out for help if you need it. Let me also address something that I know worries a lot of people. The idea that applying for or receiving SNAP benefits could somehow hurt them or their family members. There's a lot of misinformation out there about this, so let me be very clear. SNAP is not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. Receiving SNAP benefits will not affect your credit score. It will not prevent you from buying a house or getting other types of assistance in the future. SNAP is a nutrition assistance program that exists specifically to help people afford food, and if you qualify for it, you should absolutely use it. It's there for exactly this purpose. I also want to address the public charge rule because this worries a lot of immigrant families. The current policy is that receiving SNAP benefits generally will not affect someone's immigration status or their ability to get a green card. There are some very specific exceptions to this, but for the vast majority of people, using SNAP benefits when you're eligible for them is not going to create immigration problems. However, immigration law is complicated and can change, so if you have specific concerns about your immigration situation, please consult with an immigration attorney who can give you advice tailored to your specific circumstances. Before we wrap up, I want to give you some additional resources that can help you through this process. Every state has a SNAP hotline that you can call with questions. The number should be on any notices you've received, or you can find it on your state's Human Services website. There are also local community organizations in most areas that help people apply for SNAP and other benefits. These organizations often have staff or volunteers who can help you fill out your application, gather your documentation, and navigate the process. Food banks, community action agencies, legal aid offices, and churches often provide this kind of assistance or can point you towards someone who does.